Let's try this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Testing Peers. My name's Simon, and tonight we're joined by David.
Hello.
Chris.
Hey.
And Tara.
Hello.
And tonight we're going to talk about the topic of sharing quality with non-testers, and whatever that means. We'll come back to that briefly in a second. We've been sponsored by nFocus, and nFocus are a UK-based software testing company. They've been supporting businesses for 24 years by providing services that include burst resource, accelerated test automation, performance testing, and fully managed testing services. In 2021, they launched the Test Automation Academy to create amazing testers, and they've now created jobs for 48 people in our industry, which is incredible. If you want to find out more, please reach out to nfocus.co.uk or email them at info@nfocus.co.uk. Tara, I believe you're on the banter.
I know, I got volunteered. So I made a promise to myself this year, and I've completely not been living up to it, but I promised I would be spending more time reading, less time Netflixing. What have you been reading lately that I should add to my list?
I mix between non-fiction and fiction and stuff, and I've just finished a psychology book, which is Your Body Holds the Score, which is a really fascinating insight into trauma and its effects on our bodies, and how that people can be in fight or flight, and therefore that can affect their judgment. And it's really helped me to a certain extent as a manager as well, because I have suffered from trauma in my past, and it's helped me re-establish my relationships in terms of what happened to me, but also it's helping me talk to other people and recognizing it in others, especially in my line management. So it's been really useful to me, both personally and also for other people.
I love that.
I'm currently reading the seventh in a series of a police sort of criminal detective type book based in the UK. It's called Love Me Not, which is the seventh, as I say, the seventh in the series. But again, my books kind of range from crime books to sort of spy fiction to comedy biographies, that kind of thing. So a real mix. And I have a shelf of about 30 books that I've bought that I'm going to read. And I've got this wheel that I do a random spinner of my next book that I'm going to read when I finish my next one. So, and it's all on Goodreads. I have a Goodreads page with all my books that I read. So.
Oh, I'll have to find your Goodreads. What about you, Chris? What are you reading these days?
I recently had a holiday where I finished the very deep philosophical book of Anton Deck's autobiography. And then I started the latest book in terms of what I have to read from my favorite author, Jonas Jonasson, which is The Prophet and the Idiot, which is a lot of fun right now. Reading that one, the way he writes, I'm a very big fan of, and long may it continue.
So I just finished reading The Art of Gathering. Had to make sure I got the title right. From Priya Parker. Yeah, Priya Parker. Great for any community leaders or people that are hosting events, talking about why we gather as humans, how we need that social interaction, and loved that. But then I completely swapped gears after that and started reading a fiction book called From Whom the Bell Tolls. It is about a girl who passes away and finds her next life in the afterlife and all of the relationships she makes
You
there.
listen to a lot of Metallica when you listen to that, when you read it.
Yeah. Yes, it's a romance fantasy-ish.
It's very Metallica.
Very Metallica. But it's about as opposite as you can get from the one I just finished. So thank you for the new recommendations, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tara. So this mammoth topic that we've decided to take on tonight, then talking to non-testers about testing, but maybe more widely looking at quality. How do we articulate it in a way that people not in the testing world get it?
It's a very deep, broad question, Simon. There's a lot of these things. The topic came partly from us sort of discussing where we found ourselves in our careers, where often we end up talking about testing quality, ROI, cost, all those things around testing to people who don't have testing in their titles. They might be stakeholders, CEOs, heads of, they might be engineering people, product people, they might be BAs, customer service representatives. We might be coming at them from a consultancy stance, an education stance from tool vendors or whatever, but learning to speak their language and how we can break out of our echo chambers where we all know what we are talking about, almost with a sly nod, and having to better articulate things, tell different, more relevant stories to those audiences is kind of the challenge that we find ourselves in our many different contexts. I find it fascinating because it challenges you to articulate things that you almost felt was really logical and you've known for years, to then be able to describe today's current state of play, which I've kind of always known, to folks who aren't. And that in and of itself makes my brain hurt sometimes.
I agree with that. I find it really difficult sometimes to articulate the things that I have taught myself or taken for granted, and all of a sudden have to explain to someone else. And it really tests how well do I comprehend that topic to be able to explain it to somebody who's looking at me like I'm speaking another language.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think one of the biggest challenges, I think, is outside of our industry, the knowledge of testing, the knowledge of quality is not where we think it is. And actually, you find that it's a very simplistic understanding of how quick can you test, how much automation have you got, how much money can we save, rather than thinking about the intricate quality issues that we're trying to identify and mitigate through testing. So I've been in many conversations where I've gone, I don't care how you're doing it, I just need you to finish testing by Friday. And it's like, but we can't finish if you want this tested properly, you want confidence, you're going to need to give us X, Y, Z. Or I don't know what that is, but please, you just need to be done by Friday.
Yeah, and you're a one-person team and you only have 8 hours, but you can do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think you're right. And I think it's the difference between testing. For me, the understanding is testing is a cost. Testing is a cost for the project. Get it done because we're running out of money, running out of time, therefore just get it done. And I think the other thing is that, when we talk about quality, it's very difficult to explain what the understanding of quality is. And Simon mentioned there that people don't understand what quality is. And I think that we lack that sort of entry exit criteria to say what do we understand to be good, and sometimes that conversation is completely missed, so therefore there isn't a common understanding of what is acceptable at the end for us, for whoever to go, this is where we are. And it's a very different thing because testing is not the gatekeeper, so therefore we don't look at the number of tests, whatever. It's the overall confidence that we have in the software or the product that allows us to be confident that it's ready for release, rather than numbers and time and cost.
So many assumptions that we make, that folks make, like we're all kind of tired, roll our eyes when folks say, "Oh, we know what testing is, it's just this." To the point where probably we've been anchored quite a lot, where we make an assumption of how the conversation's going to go before we even have the conversation, and we can get ourselves in a rather horrible little spiral on that front more often than not. And let's be honest, Tarry, you talked about saying there's things that we just know, but then the ability to articulate that thing is a skill in and of itself. The rationale for why we do things this way, the models we're using, and understanding the theory behind that work and the practice and the attribution behind some of these things, sometimes that's challenging, and the ability to meet people where they're at, understand folks' knowledge. I've worked with a lot of people that flatter to deceive with the knowledge that they have or what they have seen. They think they know your job because they work with one bloke who did it in a certain way and gave them what they wanted all of the time. Because our industry is not only ever moving, but also is just nowhere near standard anywhere. We have to baseline things all the time. And that in and of itself is quite tiring. it's a real interesting challenge. When you get that moment that it sparks, when you meet a common understanding on things, when you find that thing, that crux, that motivator for folks, so they can actually understand. Maybe they do care about cost, maybe they care about time, maybe they care about certain things. Uncovering the things that motivate people and where you can bring testing or quality solutions to the table to help mitigate those things. That's really exciting, isn't it, when you hit that? But it's not exactly, there isn't a done and dusted way of doing it.
Another thing that we can to change the would change the language. So we've talked a lot about testing and time and budget, and also in terms of quality. What we could do is or concentrate on the areas that will affect the stakeholders, which is the risks. So if we tie quality into the risks and message it as part of we're mitigating these particular risks by needing a bit more time, then actually that's possibly some of the language that they actually speak, because actually that has an impact on them, because actually they recognize that this is a downfall rather than just talking about better quality and things like that.
I love that you mentioned that. As I've spent the last year in a more education role, one of the things I found about educating adults is they will not care about any information you give them if it's not directly applicable and immediately applicable, right? It has to be solving a problem that they have. That has really stuck with me when it comes to the conversations that I've had about quality, because we know what the problems are as testers. I've seen a product go up in flames, and I've seen angry customers filing their own bug reports and all of those things that come out from it when you lose testers. And we always end up in this kind of roller coaster of we're doing really well, so we don't need testers. But then eventually that'll bottom out, and now we have to figure out why everything's so bad. And it's like, well, all those problems that are not being mitigated. Right.
I think the key is trying to find a way to speak their language. Whoever it is, whatever their role is, speaking the terminology that they understand. So whether it's someone who's the CFO all focuses on cost, so that's where we need to articulate quality in a form of cost. The cost of quality might be a good way to try and explain it there. To someone more technical, but someone who's not in the testing world, it's finding the whatever the product is, whatever the market is, whatever the customer is there for, is articulating in terms of what impact it's going to have on the customers, what impact it's going to have on this, that, and the other. And I think that's the key in how we share what quality is to other people. I think that I've come unstuck a few times where, as we all do, we just get into our groove of being passionate about quality and talking about it in terms of testing, et cetera, and the different things that we do within our industry. And people just go, but that sounds all theoretical. Where's the practical? Where's the evidence that it's going to work? Give me confidence. Give me something that's going to tell me this is all worthwhile. And the problem is our industry there's a lot of intangibles, is that a word, in our area, which is difficult to quantify as to how we've proven that the quality is good.
So do any of you find yourself becoming like an accidental salesperson or an accidental marketer, because now you kind of have to put yourself in those shoes?
Not accidentally very often.
I don't think it's accidentally. I think it's a deliberate move.
I think you have to be very, very deliberate and very decisive with these things, because if you're coming at folks, or folks are coming at you with a bit of a negative or a demanding spin, who haven't taken time to appreciate that which you do on the craft, you have to spend the time earning the trust, going above and beyond often to provide data to drive decisions, to show a real holistic understanding of the problem and a deeper and larger approach to things than what maybe is just, I'm doing inverted commas, listener, a testing problem or a quality problem, or that's not really your thing. It's a very broad topic, but meeting people where they're at and understanding the bit that they do or they don't get will mean you have to. But I say it's quite intentional selling stuff, but actually, if we truly believe in stuff and we're quite passionate about it, it then almost becomes a little bit of an infectious kind of desire. And as long as we're as long as we're not in that stage in our tenure where we're drained and worn down, and we have that energy and that passion to drive things forward, that's kind of the moment to get other folks on board. Like we talked about testing for non-testers, if you like, and a lot of that is about bringing not just leadership folks, but also developers and squads. Maybe a squad doesn't have testers in them. Maybe they've got data scientists and developers and BAs, and they all need to participate in these things. Maybe it's dealing with customer service folks who are going to be involved in these things, technical writers, whoever in your company. It's about understanding how they can play a part in that quality journey and why quality doesn't belong to people who just have quality in their job title, taking pride in your work it really is a social activity, meeting people where they're at, understanding their perspectives and their wants. And people are expensive, and they'll say, "This is my time is valuable. I can't. Why should I spend my time doing these things?" You become not only a salesperson, but you're almost like a political lobbyist or an evangelist of something, where you're sort of drumming up support for ideas and going, right, well, I've got you on board. Let's show we can do these things and move on. And ultimately, I think we fall down if we can't show something beyond the words, because it's lovely having words and talking people's language. But if we don't have those outcomes to earn that trust, that allyship, then that comeback is incredibly hard.
The other thing that you highlight there is the sort of trust and bringing people along. And I think if you are a leader of a group, then it's making sure that that message is consistent for all the testers, all the quality. So therefore, when they are having their conversations, when they are on the projects, when they are that sole tester, they are still have that the sort of company ideal of what we are asking for. So making sure that we are highlighting the risks, if that's the way we want to do it, or making that message about the quality. So to ensure that there is consistency of message through every project and through every tester that is on those projects, so that therefore it can then, there's a sort of a groundswell of the message from everybody within the department.
I think you're right. I think there does have to be an element of, we have to try and standardize the way we do things to some extent. And I think our industry is very much in a place where standardization doesn't seem to be a thing that people want. They want to be able to do things in 50 million different ways, because the tester's brain needs to be as varied as possible. But the problem is that's really hard to sell when you're going to other areas of the business, that, oh, well, I've got a team of 10 testers. Every tester does it differently. Some have got really this discipline, some have got this discipline. But yeah, they just test it and they're happy when they're, we know when they're happy, and then we can release. That isn't going to wash. And we need to find a way to articulate that to other stakeholders, other parts of the business, that actually understand the value that testing can bring, when it's not just a pass-fail rate on a load of tests and a green mark on a dashboard. We need to find a way to build that narrative around the value that we provide.
And to be fair, I don't think that those are mutually exclusive goals. I think you can be agile and put your own spin on things, but still hold yourself to a set of standards. It's one of the reasons that we document things. It's one of the reasons that we do have dashboards, is so that we have a standard and something to say, look at what impact we've made and look at what we've done. I don't know that the BA on my team necessarily cares how I got there, or how I covered, X amount of test cases, but they do care that stakeholders are happy, and they do care that customers are happy, etc. So I think there's room for us to be a little willy-nilly sometimes, while still holding ourselves to that accountability and the advocacy that I think we all end up giving as senior testers and senior quality coaches.
There's a thing that Callum Akerst-Ryan said on one of our podcast episodes, where he said one of the things we should strive to be is trusted advisors in our workplace. You don't just walk in a place and become trusted. Like, trust is something that is earned, and that might be through showing consistent data. It might be showing returns. Folks trust people that not only speak with confidence, but back that up. And I tell my teams that we kind of win when our work is visible. We win when we've got data to back things up, when we can show this is the value of the thing that we have done. Here is a change that we did. Here's the data. We want to do these things. Here's the data to back up why we want to do those things. And you kind of you make such a compelling argument that it's almost impossible to decline it because you've covered so much. Like we are catastrophizers by very nature. We like to think of all the things that go wrong. Let's use that superpower to then translate turning that into opportunity and go, this is what we can do to improve these things. We've thought of all the bad things. Let's not forget that's how we do quality and risk intertwined. That's how we make mitigations. Let's talk about that when we come to making a compelling argument to say, join us. This is important to you. It's relevant to you for these reasons. Here's the benefits we had with these things. The agile thing, start small, grow bigger. We've spent time with our customer service representatives. They appreciate this work. They participated in this work. They educated us. We worked together with them. We now win. We've now got a reason to spend time together and win together.
And it's so much easier when it's symbiotic like that, not a one-way loop.
I did some research recently using LinkedIn. I reached out to a whole load of C-suite, CTOs, CIOs to try and understand what their biggest quality problem was. Sorry, I realised the dog's just decided to shake himself in the background.
We like dogs. I mean, what we didn't tell the listener was whilst you're reading the sponsorship message, you were getting your face licked. So it's all good.
Yes. But I reached out to a whole load of CIOs and CTOs in my network and just asked them what their quality problem were and how they perceive testing. And the answers seemed to be quite vast. And I probably need to write this up at some point. But there were some distinct patterns of the more startup-sized companies, the CIOs and CTOs really saw testing as an activity the developers could do. And that's all they need. There's automation. They can write the test. There's no issue. There's nothing more they would need to do. As far as they're concerned, the quality problem is solved. The bigger enterprises, there was a lot more push towards offshore manual testing teams, and that's where it's cheap. They just get the testing done. There's no bells and whistles. It's just they run through a load of scripts and they pass and fail. It's slow, it's clunky, but it's cheap. Why would we change it? And I feel like we as an industry keep screaming, saying there's so much more we could offer. There's so much more you need to let us do. But I feel like it's an echo chamber because we're all talking to ourselves and not pushing that message outwards. And I think we've been in that same space for the last 10 years because I know talking to devs and whatever 5 years ago or whatever before COVID, the same narrative was there that devs could do a lot of the testing, were not needed, but then other people were talking about offshoring and outsourcing and all that kind of stuff. And testing doesn't have that place where it's truly valued as an asset alongside development and other disciplines. And that's the bit that this all kind of links together is we need to do more to sell it, but we need to do it in a way that they understand and get the reasons why we do what we do. And yeah, I don't have the answer.
Well, I'll wait for that write-up for when you do get the answer. No, you mentioned LinkedIn now, and I saw something just today that made me kind of gasp for a second, and I wish I could remember who posted it.
It wasn't one of my posts, was it?
It was not one of yours. But they were talking about how so many people were telling them recently that testing is boring. Like that's the exact reason why I got into testing is it's never boring. If you're following the same scripts and you're doing manual testing of the same one feature every day, sure, it's boring. But there's so many things and so many what ifs. I love coming up with random things that I can try, like hitting the enter key 50 times just to see what happens, that it's never boring. And that made me wonder what these people were doing in their testing lives for it to be boring.
To be fair, I left a position because I found I wasn't really writing the tests. I was just organizing a suite of historical automated tests that took a weekend to run in various different things, so it didn't run or didn't break quite so often, and not being given the time to actually rewrite the tests in order to do it. So I always knew when it was going to break. I knew it very, very well, but didn't have any time to change it. So I left the job really because it was boring, but I had the option to make it more interesting by going somewhere else.
So that sounds like somewhere that wasn't valuing that
Mm.
test a
No.
whole lot.
No, exactly.
So, and I had that perception from seniors in one of my previous roles. And the way we got around that was we introduced this Friday afternoon test party, testathon, and where we just got everyone together, including the senior leadership team, to say, come and exploratory test the website. We'll come and work with us and you can see what we do. And we'll pair you up with a tester and a senior leader and whatever else. And they were finding exploratory testing bugs. And they were going, I didn't realize you guys did so much complex stuff. I didn't realize you had this kind of ability to do this. I thought you just ran tests and marked them as pass or fail. And it was that moment of bringing them into our world and showing them this is what we can do. This is what
a light bulb moment.
you can allow them to. And it did have the benefits that selfishly, I was then able to get business cases through to bring more people in because I'd got the leadership team on board to see the value that we could bring. And then I was like, well, you know, all that stuff, you want us to automate more stuff. We can automate some of this if I have more automation experts, or I need an architect that can help craft this kind of session for more people. And it was just, it did allow me to make those steps forward. So there is value in bringing them into our world, but equally, I think we need to meet them in their world as well and show them both sides. So.
I completely agree with sort of the testathon and exploratory testing type methodologies. I'm working on a project at the moment where we have people, I think we've run weekly testathons for 14 weeks. And I think we found a bug in every single one. We've had 100% track record, which, it's a maturing product, but we're still finding them because just the nature. And absolutely, as you say, having developers there, the PM, the PR, the people in charge of the project are seeing how we actually do things. And again, it also creates that interest of, they talk about it to me and go, have you found any bugs in the test? Are they actually working? And the fact that I can go, yes, they are. We found this, and this, then it gives them confidence and goes, all right, okay, and also it breaks that ideal of we need automated tests. We need automated tests for everything, because actually the automated tests are coming up with or finding bugs, but actually doing the testathon, doing that exploratory testing is finding different bugs, because we're not doing exactly the same thing. We're mixing and matching, and we're doing things in different ways because we have the flexibility to do that.
It's wonderful when you get to be able to show those things off, showing those value. It's wonderful. There's a friend of the podcast, Sophie Kuster, has done a talk in the last year or so called The Imposter's Guide to Tooting Your Own Horn. And I think we can all take a leaf out of that book, because humility is lovely and it's a good way to approach relationships with folks. But actually, we did talk about being a bit more decisive, being a bit more assertive, owning some more of that quality story. Seeing the value in what we're doing is really important, both for ourselves, because we have to live with ourselves all the damn time, but also in bringing people along. Like, people follow someone who is assertive, someone who is celebrating things, someone who is positive and is going to celebrate things. That, there's scientific proof that positivity gets much more of a positive response than negativity. Who'd have thought? I think there's a lot to be said for that, but I think we as a craft have struggled often in celebrating things, calling out the good things. I mean, it's very easy to point at stuff and complain about how bad the world is. Let's look out the window. But there is still good stuff going on. There is community. There are supportive folks. And I think there's really exciting stuff. Like, I am confused as hell by AI all the time. But do you know what? It's interesting. I'm greeting it with a great deal of cautious optimism, because I can see there's a lot of opportunity. But my goodness, is it being used badly at the moment? Every time I see something getting put out there, I'm like, and then the snake oil's being sold, and you're like, but there is an opportunity, and if we investigate it, if we take the time to understand, to see the real value in stuff, and to actually bring people on that journey, show that we're knowledgeable, show that we're technical, show that we understand where value lies with these things, we can be a part of shaping that as well. And that is actually very exciting, however terrifying the future might be.
But it's hard to get other people excited and impassioned if you're not also excited and impassioned. Like, why would I care if you don't care?
Hey, come on this journey about this thing that I couldn't give two hoots about.
You're gonna make me pay extra for what when you obviously don't care? We have to be that really good storyteller that takes it up a notch, even on days when I'm feeling particularly introverted. I have to be really excited to show you this thing that I found or this new technique to do something because I want that to be infectious. I want the devs to go, "Oh, that's really neat. Let me try that. Let me see if I can implement that." Versus going, "Okay, so why are you showing me this?"
I think that's part of it as well. Is it is still seen as the new shiny, and again, speaking to C-suite, AI is a buzzword that they all want in their businesses. So therefore, if we want to be part of the future, we're going to have to embrace it, whether we're cynical about it or not. But it's finding a way to make it positive, and we can use it to our advantage. There are tools out there. Yes, there's lots of snake oil as there is with automation and many other services being sold in our industry. But if we find a way to make it positive and talk about it in the right way and talk about how we could test it, or testing AI is a whole area that hasn't really been articulated at all as to how it can be done and what we need to do differently. And that's an area that if we find the right way to talk about that, it's going to set us in good stead to be part of the conversations going forward.
It's almost like being a participant in its development rather than just waiting for it and then going, oh well, this is how we test it. Just like Taylor's old as time is, be involved as early as you can. There's new innovation, get involved. There's new innovation, learn, understand, find where you're going to fit, shape those sorts of things early doors. That's kind of what we have to do. It's kind of our responsibility as voices, quality advocates. Otherwise, we'll be having the same complaints.
I remember early on in my career, somebody told me that I was nothing but negative because I was pointing out risks all the time. And to be fair, I was joining a project that was 5 years in and had failed to launch because of the issues they were having because they'd never hired a QA before. So that comes with all of its own issues, right? Having finally seen the value in QA, they brought somebody in and then we're kind of upset that it was like, well, here's the issues and here's why. But being part of that conversation much earlier, we can mitigate those risks and advocate for quality way earlier on. And we don't have to be the bad guy telling you this is why it's broken because it would have never broken in the first place. We can preemptively attack.
We can talk to our friends at Risk Storming as good ideas for ways that we can get involved in those things. We could talk about this probably for the next 24 hours, but let's not. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Tara, once again for coming along. There will be, by the time you are listening to us, listener, the exciting news of PeersCon 26 and two wonderful program chair folks who are on this podcast today. Good stuff. Please get involved. Go to testingpeerscon.com. Get involved in the call for collaboration, and we will look forward to seeing you in Nottingham next March. Otherwise, details about the wonderful M-Focus are in the show notes, and we will see you. You won't see us because, audio podcast. Next time.
For now, it's goodbye from the Testing Peers.
Goodbye.